Hey everybody, this is Amanda with the ADM Farms, South Carolina. We got called to a doctor's house today and we're about 15 feet up in the air in a bucket truck. And it's got bees all in this facial board. We're gonna cut it out and see what we got. Here we're just doing the construction part, basically ripping off the house part and kind of exposing and finding where the bees are. There was a contractor, Justin, who owned the boom truck and / helping as the contractor with his friend. So here it's just basically I'm ripping up in the house and trying to decide where the bees are coming from. The house is almost $1 million house and nobody's lived there in a while, so nobody really knew anything about the bees or where they were. The realtor, I think, found the bees or found them going in and out in that little corner right there, as you can tell. So I had to do a voiceover on this one just because the boom truck was so loud and we really just couldn't hear anything every time I tried to record something, or it was just to the point that we just decided we would have to stop. I gave my daughter the camera down below us. She's down below us recording for us just because the sound was so bad. But again, here I'm just ripping up the house a little bit more to expose the bees. Right, that gable right there, it's under that kind of that wainscoting or that fancy plywood. That's actually where the bees are, but we had to call the homeowner and kind of ask permission because there was no getting the bees. We tried to do as little damage as we could, and we kept trying to explain to them that we weren't going to get the bees out. Killing the bees is not a solution, and we had to expose the house to be able to get to the bees, expose them and get to the bees. But again, you can see all those, the bushes are below us. Here Justin is taking a my sawzall and cutting, just because he was going to have to repair the house. So he wanted to do his cutting on, take that 2x6 so we could see and expose that part of the bees. And he really doesn't like being up there. He was ready to get out once we got that much open. But actually, you can see some of the comb right there. It's underneath, and here he is again trying to take that gable off. We actually had to stop and call the homeowner and express to them that we could not get the rest of the bees or get everything exposed. And here I am pulling the plywood open. I had to put the box right there. I had to later. There's the hive right there. And again, I had to do a voiceover just because there was no way that y'all couldn't hear anything. But you'll see it right there. It goes, there is no attic access, and it goes up kind of on the ceiling joists, the roof joists right there, and some of the comb was just mangled up. And again, I think it was just basically a swarm on a swarm, but I never did find the queen. And here I'm starting to cut some pieces of comb out and just start looking for the queen, looking for eggs, the larvae, and just kind of assess. Some of the comb was brittle, some was decent, some was not decent. And I just separate the buckets, the wax, putting it in the buckets. I think I took 4 or 5 stings, I'm not real sure, but actually the bees were really good for what we were doing. But here you can see Justin's boom. If he got me close enough to reach the hive, his boom would almost hit the house. And here I'm spraying some honeybee gone from Blythewood bees. Blythewood bees are located about maybe 25 minutes from me here in South Carolina, and I would try every time I'd get a section, and I know you're not seeing everything, but the video was so long, but every time I'd get a section cleaned out, I'd spray some honeybee gone. But you'll see the trees and the limbs. It was kind of a windy day, and you can see my box is trying to go on me. That roof was so high, and again, 30 foot in the air to get to the bees. The whole setup was just difficult. I'd reach up in those cavities and find some more. You can see the wind a little bit starting to pick up and stormy, and then the wind would blow and the box would move. But if it wasn't for the boom truck here, there's no way we would have got the hive out. They just didn't want to get a scaffold or anything and mess up all the bushes below. You see it up in between those 2x6s up in there. There's more comb. There was a lot of honey on that comb up in where you can't see. Right there, I'm removing that bucket just because I couldn't reach over with the way the controls were up there in that boom, so I had to put it in the truck with me. Here I'm trying to remove some more. Just work my way slow up in there and cut some. Try to find the queen, try to find some eggs and larvae. We found a little bit. Never did find her. And again, you can see the boom truck is resting up against the house. It was just such a precarious position to be in, trying to be 30 foot up in the air and no attic access, and try to just not, my arms weren't long enough to get up in there and do it correctly. You see there, it'll be brittle. There was pieces that were brittle. There was these two pieces actually had some decent eggs on them, and this is what's in the box now. And again, they've formed queen cells, so hopefully she'll hatch out. Right there, I was pointing out to Justin because he was trying to move me out, but you can see right there on that corner piece, that was actually 2 or 3 queen cells that had already been there prior, that had hatched. I was pointing it out and trying to tell them. I tried to make the times that Justin would have to lift me up, and again, it was very difficult to operate in that little cramped space. I know it doesn't look like it, but it was a lot to be cramped in there. But the times that he had to move me, I tried to make it worth his while, his time to move me up there so I could rubber band enough pieces and hold on to it while I was being jerked and the wind was blowing me. And one time I had to stop because a couple of the guys, the 2 of the guys down there were getting stung, and that's why I was telling one of them here to put a bee jacket on. But it was a very, very long day. I think the whole thing, we were maybe 6-8 hours. I know at one point it was 8 hours, but then we had to come back that night and remove the box. Here I'm just waiting on Justin to be able to lift me up, and you see the wind. The box is still moving. That little platform right there with his controls, I know you can't see it, but his controls are kind of up above the bucket because he has a special kind of controls, and it was just difficult. I didn't have any room to cut. And everybody always said, well, why didn't you, I'm sure people are questioning, well, why didn't you just cut everything and then put it in a cooler and go down? Well, it was because I was 30 foot up in the air, and the roof is so steep. It's a metal roof. It was probably 100 degrees, 95 degrees, and it was very difficult to try to get Justin to be able to see it sliding there, and I wasn't taking a chance of trying to stick stuff on the roof that was already sliding, and Justin having to up and down me in the boom. So that's why once I saw that there wasn't a lot of eggs and larvae, I just decided that the best thing in the long run was to put the box there and frame up the couple frames that we did have of eggs and larvae in the comb, and leave it there, and then hope the rest of them would, if I did find a queen, that they would march in, which I never did. But I was able to get the bees in there to eventually, by that night, I was able to scoop them in and get them in the air and get them to going in. And again, my rubber bands kept popping. See there? That was the rubber band popped on me. So I had to kind of start over right there, but the box just kept trying to slide on me. And you'll see in a few minutes that Justin had a big C-clamp in his truck. So we put the C-clamp on the front of the box and did it to the roof. That roof was very hot that day. And again, if the cutout would have been so hard, the removal wouldn't have been so hard if we weren't 30 foot up in the air, and just the location of where it was on the eave of the roof with no access, with blueberry and blackberry bushes below us that they didn't want damaged. And here I'm just rubber banding some more and trying to get a couple pieces together and work. Sliding rubber bands here. And again, all in all, I think it was a successful day, and the people who were helping me aren't bee people, so they all learned a lot. Here I'm trying to straighten everything back up, and I think that's when Justin realized he had a C-clamp. Here I'm just taking a frame of drawn out wax that had some nectar in it that I brought, and I was just scooping bees, brushing bees on, and then I dump them in the box, and after I look for a queen. So that's kind of what I'm doing there. I put another frame in, I believe, of another kind. Try to get them on that. It was another drawn comb, and I was trying to get them once I dumped them in. I was trying to get them to get on that comb. I was just stuck it right beside the eggs and larvae that I had wrapped up. And there I'm taking that same frame and just brushing bees and looking for the queen as I'm going along. Never did find her. But the bees were very gentle for the boom truck to be beaten, for us to hammer and rip up the way they did. So I'm really excited about when the queen hatches out, and I'll do a video on that. Hopefully she'll hatch out and go mate and come back. And you see, I was putting the lid on here. I had a decent amount, and I know that I couldn't show everything on this because it was so long, but I have a decent amount already in there. So I'm on this overview. I've clipped everything together to try to show you as much as I could, but I've got the looking here for the queen. There was a couple clusters that were throughout, and I just kept thinking each time I saw a cluster, I thought maybe she might be in there, but she never was in there. You can see there's a good many in the air, and all those that were in the air, eventually, as I got more and more into the box, they would land on front, right in front of the roof, and they were going in the box. You can kind of tell that by what's still left on the roof and right there and on that comb. Now here, Justin's he took me down, but he forgot I had to have the smoker because I'm gonna try to get back below him there and smoke some more off of that comb that's down underneath there. And I'm again spraying some Honeybee Gone from the Blythewood Bee Company, of where I've already cleaned out. I know you can't really see that, but I had cavity that was up in there right there to the left, just under that 2x6. I had reached back up in there and got some more. And here I'm trying to get them up in the air and just get them away and get them to go back over to the box. Because once I got them airborne and could kind of see there, and I know he's jerking me and the wind's blowing, and it just kept blowing backwards. So I'm really not spraying as much as you think I'm spraying, but this is when Justin decides that he's throwing me a C-clamp. He chunked me a C-clamp up there, and I C-clamped the front of the box to the roof. And you can see a good picture of it there. And finally, I just kept worrying because the box kept sliding. Then I'm able to get back to start cutting some more of the comb out. Some of the comb was just fresh comb, and some of it was old comb and brittle, and some of it that was decent had so much nectar in it. It's just heavy. Again, I'm back cutting some more, and I know it's hard to see, but again, the position we were in was just very difficult. So my daughter's below me trying to video, so at least to get some of the video going. It's pretty impressive hive. And again, I think it was probably a swarm on a swarm, because for as much comb that was there, these bees, we think they had probably been there a year. The house had been vacant for about a year, so I think that's when they came. You can see the wind. The wind was pretty strong that day, and again, we've had storms for about 4 days after that, so the wind was kicking up. Here was a decent piece. This is actually rubber banded in the hive now, and I thought, oh boy, I'm gonna find her for sure, but I never did. But those two pieces again were really decent with some eggs and larvae, and I was trying to take my time looking for her there, and you can see them all in the air. I eventually got them all in. Once I got these last two pieces right here in there and rubber banded those up, the bees seemed to go in a little bit more. Even though they were already going in. There wasn't a march. Obviously, I didn't have a queen in there, but they seemed to say, hey, this is our box now. And you can see, I thought, man, I might have seen her, but it wasn't her. It was just a little glob, but it wasn't her. And again, you can see the trees and how little space Justin had to work. If he got me close to the house, the boom was almost on the house. So if it wasn't for him and that boom truck, we would have never got these bees out, because it was actually a little over 30 foot. They came back and measured when they were repairing the house after I had taken the bees and gone, but it's actually a little bit more than 30 foot. And the other guy that was helping didn't like heights, so it was basically me and one guy got in to try to do the cutout, the construction part of cutting another piece of the roof open, and that was it. You can see right there from underneath the roof where they tore that piece of wainscoting off. You can see that it's just excuse me, just rafters. There is no attic access. It's just cavities, and insulation stops back about two foot back to the left there. And again, I try to, when Justin has to move me back up out of position, I tried to make it worth his while. So I actually had a couple pieces of comb that had some eggs and larvae that were decent on this trip back up. And it was just a really, really hard picture to video. Here I'm just rubber banding some more pieces up. Those were actually pretty decent. They're in the hive now, and they were the ones that contained the most eggs and larvae. And again, it was just hardly any room to work with. It's just a small lip there, and the roof was so hot. One time I tried to lay a piece up on the roof, and between the hotness and the space that I had to work, and again, you can see we have the box finally C-clamped right there. Here we've sort of gone to lunch and wrapped up. I've got most of them, and I came back and busted that open and got a little bit more out of there. Here, it's about 9 o'clock that night. We're back, and they're lifting us back up. Well, I've already ratchet strapped the box earlier in the daytime when I finished. I guess we finished in about maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and we came back at 9. So I think we finished at 6, and I came back at around 9 or 9:30. So I'd already ratchet strapped, but here I'm just closing up the hive really good. I think my husband is up there at that point, helping me, and you can see a lot of the bushes and all the stuff that was underneath that they really didn't want a scaffolding or anything like that for. But it's at 9:30 that night, and we got them in there, and here they're just lowering me back down. They set it on the boom truck once I got that far down, and there's a platform right there, and then they're just setting us back down over here. Here we were back at the farm. I think it was about 10:30 that night, but we got back, and you can see they're stapled up in there. I just have a piece of cardware cloth, and I usually try on a swarm to leave a little stick or something, so I try to lock them up till the next day. Hey everybody, this is Amanda with A&M Farms in South Carolina. I'm not new to bees, but I'm new to this channel. So if we're going to be putting up some videos, so if you like them, please subscribe and pass them on to your friends. We're fixing to post a video of a removal that we did about 30 foot up in the air with the boom truck, and it's fixing to rain, but I wanted to show y'all what the hive looks like that we transported back to this box. We didn't have a whole lot the day that we did the removal that night, and but I just wanted to show you that what the brood and the eggs and the larvae that we did have, we were able to rubber band together. And I've been trying to leave them alone and not go into them, but as you can see, they're starting to cut a few rubber bands. But if you can see, you'll see there's a bunch of them down in there, and they've made some queen cells, and it's raining. I'm trying not to disturb them or anything, but I just wanted to kind of give y'all an update on what the hive was doing. They're doing good. I've been giving them a couple pollen patties and some sugar syrup. We've had storms for 3 days straight, and we're fixing to have some more storms for the next few days. So anyway, I was just out here and wanted to give you a little update of what the removal that we did 30 foot up in the boom truck. Again, I know this is a bad time with the coronavirus, so excuse the haircut and coronavirus look, but
Okay, here you can see that they're starting to make some queen cells, and I've tried not to go in here, but you can see that they are going to get to where they're going to start to hatch. This was part of the original brood and comb, that the little bit that they had, all that, those queen cells, that was what was in the original hive. I think this was a swarm on a swarm when we did the removal. So they've made a couple over here. They've got a couple on this next frame. Some of the comb is just kind of waggedy. So we're just kind of leaving them alone and letting them do their thing. And then once she hatches, we're gonna fix them and put them in a better box and see if we can't take care of them. There's some queen cells down in there on another piece of comb, but the comb is just so waggedy-fied, rubber banded, that the way it was up underneath the roof line, it was just hard to get anything. But we are getting, we do have some queen cells in there. So when they hatch and get settled, then we'll fix them in a new box and give them some new frames and just fix the whole situation. Anyway, I just want to give y'all an update on that.